Hello and welcome back to Foundation of Cybersecurity course. In this course, we will see cybersecurity policy in more details. Uh, like in our previous slides, we already have seen what is actually policy, standards, guidelines, procedures. But we are going to see this cybersecurity policy in more details in this class. So the main objectives and upon completion of this particular class or the session, you will be able to answer these questions. The first one is you can define information security policy and understand its central role in successful information security program. The second is you will be able to know what are the three main types of information security policy. And of course, you can also explain what goes into each of them. You're going to develop, you can also develop various types of information security policies for for different business use cases also by the end of this class. So before I go directly into policy, I'm just giving you actually a use case of Indian scenario of India's policy landmark. So it is just a use case what actually happened. So in 1949, the industrial policy, like the government of India, started with its industrial policy where they were more concerned about how they are going to set up the industries and everything in the country. In 1972, just to boost the players, the local players, they restricted the foreign players getting enter into India, and this was just to support local manufacturing. However, in 1984, they in India they had a new computer policy. Same goes in 1986, a policy on computer software export development and training started. And in 1990, Software Technology Park actually was set up in across various places in India. And in 1991, the economy liberalization was happened actually in India because of this series of policies. I'm not explaining what things happened in these things. You can refer different if you want to know, you can refer different guidelines or different research articles to know more about them. But in 2019, the national policy on software product was launched, and in 2015, Digital India, in which everything the government tried to put on a digital platform. So what I am trying to say from this actually is policy, the way you make the policy, it is going to drive and shape your progress. So policy is very important for any organization or any country's growth. You can see in this graph, I have taken this graph from a website which is mentioned at the bottom. So in the x-axis, you can see there are different years are mentioned, and on the y-axis is the percentage of growth. And this graph actually shows you what is or what actually was Indian software exports from 1980 to 2015 in US billions. So you can see that, because of this economy liberalization, which happened in 1990, you can see this color or the bar graph started from 1994, and very soon in 2015, it was doing almost $20 billion dollar exports. Uh, the growth was very high, means the exports was very high, and this is exactly what is you can get from the policies. So this is why we are saying, like, the policy, the way you make the policy, it is going to drive and shape the progress of country as well as the organization. Uh, so um, so in a simple definition, if I talk what the policy is, so we can say like policy is similar to laws, uh, similar to laws. Uh, policy also define like what is right, what is wrong, and of course there will be some penalties if you if someone violates the policy, and there is going to be an appeal process. So policy in any organization is considered as the foundation because it is going to serve in security, in terms of cybersecurity, it is going to serve as the essential foundation of an information security program because they provide the framework, guidelines that govern how an organization approaches and manages its information security. And policymakers actually are the individuals who are responsible for creating and enforcing policies. And most often you are going to see like these people are or senior management of any organization, and they play a very important role in setting the tone for the organization's stance on information security. So ultimately, the main objective of this policy actually is the first is to reduce risk. Risk in the sense information security policies always aims to reduce the risk of security incidents. Uh, it can be breaches, it can be unauthorized access by establishing a clear guidelines and controls. The second objective is it should always comply with laws and regulations because ultimately you don't want to have a policy which contradicts the laws, and you don't want that someone can challenge your policy in the court. So they always comply with laws and regulations. And the third is policies are designed to provide assurance that the organization can maintain operational continuity. They can protect the integrity of its information, and of course they can safeguard the confidentiality of sensitive data. So but on the other hand, the policies are like, if you see policy in general, it is least expensive means of control, and often you are going to see it is very difficult actually to difficult to implement, and very difficult to implement. And some basic policies which should all means whenever we are designing some policies, it should adhere these three things. It is very important that it should follow these three things. The first one is um, policy should never conflict with law. Like I told you, it should always be within law. Second is policy must be able to must be able to stand up in the court if challenged, because there are going to be many cases in which in which there in which the people or the employees themselves can challenge the policy in the court. So it should be made within the law so that it can stand in the court once argued. The third is policy must be properly supported and administered. So the policy comes from the higher management. So it's very important that it is supported by the whole organization as an organization who are there to make the policies. Yeah. So this is exactly what the policies are. So typically, I can tell you like the policy actually direct how issues should be addressed and how technologies should be used. They are not going to tell you, or they are not going to specify how like the proper operation of equipment or software, but they are going to tell you how you can address or what should be done uh, in a particular scenario. So why policy? So this bull's eye model actually is a conceptual framework which is used to illustrate the layers of defense within an organization's cybersecurity strategy. If you see this graph, it tells you various levels of protection, with each layer actually is representing a different aspect of organization's security infrastructure. This model is used to design and analyze in-depth strategies. And if I explain this whole bull eye, you can see the outermost outermost part of this whole framework is policy. So it is actually the first layer of defense. So we can say like policy represents the first layer of defense in the bullseye model, and they includes this includes actually rules, guidelines, principles that defines an organization approach to security. Uh, yes, and this policy actually is going to set the tone for how employees and systems should behave in terms of security. So the ultimate role of this policy, if you see here, is to provide the foundation for the entire security infrastructure, and 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 how this can be done. For example, there can be some policy for password policy. There can be some data classification policy. There can be some acceptable usage policy, and so on. Yeah. So the next layer, if you see in this bull's eye, is the networks. And the second layer, actually, this is the second layer of defense in any organization. And this second layer of defense focuses on securing the organization's network. Means you are going to implement different measures to protect against threats as they attempt to traverse the whole network. So for doing this, maybe the organization can include or use firewalls, network-based intrusion detection system. They can also take help of different network monitoring tools, for example, Wireshark and so on. So these all technologies actually are work together to detect and mitigate threats at network level. The third is systems, which actually refer to computers and manufacturing systems. So basically, this layer tries to address the security of hardware, operating system, and configuration of these systems. So for doing this, maybe the best approach can be to use or to include antivirus software. There can be regular system updates, some patch management, and of course, it can also include secure configurations to minimize threats or vulnerabilities. Next is application. So this application actually focuses on securing the organization's applications and software systems. This includes actually both internal and external facing applications. And the basic role is to involve some secure coding practices, regular application testing for vulnerabilities, and monitoring for unusual or malicious activities. So this can include one of the example can be secure software development lifecycle practices, application security testing, and so on. Yeah. So next is the simple definition of policy: standards, practices, guidelines, procedures. If you remember in the previous slides, I have discussed about this. Like policy is a very high level plan or course of action that influence and determines decisions within an organization. So, and this is going to actually help you in decision making, and it is going to guide the organization's action. And they are always seen as a foundation for establishing a secure and compliant environment. On the other hand, if I talk about these standards, they are more detailed statements that are going to specify what must be done to comply with the policy. Yes, they are going to provide you some specific criteria or requirement that must be met to ensure adherence with the policy. Now, what is then the practice? So the practice actually is identifies other reputable organization and agencies that offer some recommendation the organization have adopted or adapted. So basically, practices represent how things are commonly done, and on the other hand, these procedures they give you the detailed step-by-step instructions or sequence of activities that any employee can follow to comply with policies and standards. So if I talk about procedures, they provide a structured approach to achieve specific tasks. On the other hand, the guidelines are the recommendations or suggestions that provide employees on how to interpret and apply policies and standards. Yeah, so we saw this. We also saw an example for policy standard. We took an example of passwords, where the policy can be like employees must use strong passwords for their accounts, and it should be changed regularly and protected against disclosure. This is very important. This can be a policy. On the other hand, the standards can be the password must be at least 10 characters long. It should include one lowercase, one uppercase, one alphanumerical numeric numbers, and so on. On the other hand, the practice can include um, there can be some recommendations which can be used, which are actually adopted by different companies. For example, United States Computer Emergency Readiness Team recommends of using password of minimum of 15 characters for administrator accounts. They should always use alphanumeric passwords and symbols, and so on. And on the other hand, for guidelines for passwords, we have NIST SP 800-118 policy, which can be used for the guidelines. And finally for procedures, there can be step-by-step instructions where they can means there can be some steps which tells you first you should log in with your old password and on your organization home screen, and then you put your old password, new password. Means it is going to tell you the step-by-step instruction how actually you are going to perform this task. So this is exactly the difference between policy, standard, practice, guidelines, and procedures. But if I talk about so I think I have discussed about this. What is policy, standards, practices, procedures, and guidelines? But in order to make policies to be very effective, these are the four things which every policy must adhere. First thing is policy must be effectively communicated throughout the organization. Its dissemination is very important. And this can be done using different official channels, such as via intranet. Like for example, in LUT, we have LUT intranet, where we share, where we receive and where we share different information for employees, for students, and for others. There can be you can also employ multiple handbooks. There can be multiple training sessions. Uh, so these are the different ways actually by means by which you can disseminate the policies within the employees in an organization. Second is read. It is very important that the employees should read and have access to these policies. And once they can be means there can be some mechanism can be formulated where once the policy has been read, the acknowledgement of will be received is going to be received um, uh, by the recipient, or there can be some regular reminders to review the policies. For example, if you are coming to if you are if you're submitting your data for any course, for example, for learning a particular language, they ask at the bottom you have to click, you have to tick mark you are willing to send your data, and which comes under privacy policy. So this is how some acknowledgement should be done. And the third is understanding. So policies should be written in a clear and understandable language. Maybe some training sessions or communication efforts can help to ensure employees comprehend to the content. Employees should acknowledge their agreement actually to comply with policies, and this can be done through signatures, electronic acceptance, or other acknowledgement mechanisms. So overall, if you see, the policies are very important and they work as a reference document. They can be used for internal audits. For example, an organization, every organization I can tell you has an information security policy that is going to outline the procedures for data protection, access control, and incident response. So these three are the basic things which which are there, which are followed by every organization. Yeah. And if you have these policies in your organization, so during an internal audit, the auditors can refer to this policy to evaluate actually the effectiveness of security measures. They can actually check if access controls are in place, data handling practices align with policy requirements, and if incidents actually are reported and uh, are addressed as per the policy. The second is like for the resolution of legal disputes about management's due diligence. The organization information security policy is going to serve as a key document, which is going to demonstrate the diligence of the company. So it means like it is going to outline the security measures are in place. They are going to tell you the employee's responsibility to adhere to these measures and the procedures of reporting incidents. For example, in any legal dispute, the organization can present this policy as evidence, like they have taken the proactive steps to establish and communicate security expectations. Now, to produce a complete information security policy, management must define three types of information security policy, which is actually given in NIST 814 document. The first one is Enterprise Information Security Program Policy. The second is Issue-Specific Information Security Policy. And the third is Systems-Specific Policies. So let's see what actually is Enterprise Information Security Policies, or EISP. So actually, EISP establishes the strategic visions and goals related to information security on an entire organization level. So it sees policies from the top organization level, and it is going to define the scope of security efforts. It is going to outline the areas and assets that need protection. Moreover, it can also set the tone how seriously the organization is taking security and importance of safeguarding information assets. It can also it gives responsibilities to specific individuals or roles within the organization to ensure that information security is effectively managed. And this includes by defining multiple roles in an organization. For example, we can have security officers, we can have administrators and employees in safeguarding information assets. And most of the time, like this EISP is the responsibility. I mean, these policies are mainly governed by Chief Information Security Officer, the CISO of any organization. The third is like EISP can serve as a guide for the development, implementation, and ongoing management of organizations' information security program. It is going to outline the requirement and measures necessary to achieve the stated security objectives. For example, the organization will be able to develop a comprehensive set of information security policies, which can actually cover multiple areas. For example, access control, data encryption, and incident response. So this is a broad term. Means we are seeing the policy from a top organization level here. And every EISP document should include actually an overview of corporate philosophy on security. It should tell it should give you information about information security organization and information security roles, like we saw that, and responsibilities for security shared by all members of the organization, responsibilities for security unique to each role within the organization. Like I told you, there will be multiple people in an organization who are going to be responsible for a particular security aspects. Means one can handle access control, one can see one can be used in risk management, one can be used some people can be aligned with contingency planning, and so on. So what are the main components of EISP? So the first component is statement of purpose, which is going to tell you why we need this policy. The second is information technology security elements, which is going to define information security in the broad context. Why actually why there is a need for information technology security. So this is going to justify the importance of information security in an organization. Next is information security responsibilities and roles, like we discussed. We need to have some roles assigned to people, and there should be some responsible, so that in case of any threat, or if in case of any event, if unexpected event happens, so we can have a person who actually is responsible for that. And there should always be some references to information technology standards and guidelines. For example, I mentioned for password, we have NIST SP 800 118 document. Yeah, so the next is issue specific security policy, or ISSP. So over here, actually, we are more concerned about the technology that we are going to use. So it is more focused towards it is more focused towards the organization, means toward different technologies that are going to be used within the organization. And it is going to provide a detailed document that is going to start with introduction to fundamental technology philosophy of the organization, and why actually we need this organization. There should be some documents how the technology-based system is controlled. It is going to identify the process and authorities that is going to provide this control. Yes. So yeah. So there can be multiple technologies, and ISP can include policies for different things. For example, how for email use, for internet usage. For example, in the case of internet, if an organization wants to use the internet, they want to know, like, what actually what websites or what are the different domains are being accessed by their employees. What there should be some policies which should tell, okay, so this particular website should not be accessed. How to treat with phishing emails if we are getting, and so on. Means, so these are different technologies for which IISP can work for. So if you see the difference, actually, the EISP was more about the whole organization, and IISP is about a particular technology usage. So again, in components of ISSP, we have statement of purpose, what are authorized access and usage of equipment, what are different prohibited usage of equipment, systems management, violation of policy review and modification, limitations of liability. So these all are actually self-explanatory. So I will not explain this in details. You can refer the textbook. But overall, if you see, ISSP talks about a particular technology and about its usage. Yeah. So the third one is system-specific security policy, and actually this policy is different from both the policies what we have seen from EISP and ISSP, because it is a document that is going to provide detailed guidance and instructions for secure configuration, operation, and maintenance of a specific information system or equipment. So actually, they are designed to translate higher level managerial policies into practical directives for system administrators. And they can be separated into three parts. First is management guidance. There can be management guidance, there can be technical specification, or maybe we can have a single policy document which is going to combine both. So in managerial guidance, system-specific policies, these are always created by the high-level management team to guide the implementation and configuration of technology. It applies to any technology that affects the CIA triad, For example, the firewall configuration. So here, the management actually wants the organization to have a particular firewall uh, in the organization settings. It is going to also inform technologists of management intent. On the other hand, if you see technical specification, these are system administrator direction on implementing managerial policy. So now you want to implement this security, means the firewall configuration. And this, so if you see this separation, so the manager is going to tell you how to configure a firewall, but technical specification actually is going to tell what configuration is needed to configure the firewall. So this includes so general method of implementing technical controls can be access control list and configuration rules. So access control list is going to include the user access list, matrices, and capability tables that actually is going to govern the rights and privileges. So if you see this, okay. So it is going to tell you who can use the system, what authorized user can access, when authorized users can access the system, where, how, and restricting what users can access. So let's see this example here to get more into ACL. So this is Windows XP computer management. If you see in the center, we have name and we have description. So administrators, we have different roles. For example, we have one role of administrator, and and it tells you like administrator have complete and unrestricted access to the computer and domain. Second, if you see backup operators, backup operators can override security restrictions for a sole purpose. And on the other hand, guests have same access as member of the users groups by default, and there can be some restrictions on guest as compared to a normal employee. So we have different roles, we have different names, and for each name or each role, we are going to have certain um, controls actually that which is going to tell what they can do, how they can do, when they can do. On the other hand, configuration rules are specific configuration codes which are being entered into security systems to guide execution of system when information is passing through. So let's see like this configuration rules here. So this is a rule. This is a firewall configuration rule. If you see in this diagram, so the rule number 7 states like any traffic coming in on a specified link, they have mentioned this link also, requesting a telnet session is going to be accepted, but we are going to log it. This also implies that non-telnet traffic will be denied. So we have a rule, we have done this configuration in our software. So this configuration actually our rules are basically some specific some configuration codes actually that you're going to put inside the system. And if I compare both configuration rules and ACL, you will see the rule policies are more specific to system operation. We are where this configuration rules actually we are saying here, and ACLs may or may not deal with users directly. So they have different roles. They may not deal with the users. And similarly, we have multiple actions also there. For example, one action is like whether the packet from source is acceptable or you need to drop and so on. Yeah, in combination, we are going to merge both of them together, and it totally depends on the size of the organization where they want to have this managerial and configuration part together, or they want to have this standalone. However, if you are going to mix them, this can make a little means the overall structure can be a little bit confusing and confusing. And once we are doing this, we need to take special care about the actions and procedures what we have seen in our previous slides. So for any policy development, these are 7 guidelines which must be adhered. First is they should be developed using industry accepted practices, distributed or disseminated using all appropriate methods. We have seen there can be training sessions, there can be acknowledgement things. So So proper dissemination of policy is very important. They should be reviewed and read by all employees. They should be understood by all employees, formally agreed to by act on the policy that have been made, and it should be uniformly applied and enforced to everyone in the organization. Yeah, thank you.